Hey guys, it's Broken Angel, and this is Ebon Light. I decided to play this because you guys seem to be loving the visual novels, so I thought, well, this is up my alley. I really do love the fantasy and the elven side of stuff, so let's give this one a go. Sorry, I forgot to swap out my Twitch border as I was streaming. Oh, we get to make our own character. I like this. My go-to name for my Elder Scrolls Wood Elf is Zelaria. I'm not gonna put a whole name. We'll just do that. Hairstyle. These are cute. I think I'm gonna go with that one. Hair color. And we'll keep it brown. Eye color. Yep, that's good for me. Skin color. We'll go tanned. Select a disposition. Charm, attractive and likable. Cunning, clever and observant. Tenacity, resilient and determined. I'm gonna go with clever and observant, I think. Next. There was once a tomb that buried only the living. The people who built the tomb were plagued with a terrible affliction, but before the affliction could consume them, they sealed the plague away in the body of a creature. The creature itself was kind and gentle, so very much so that in the great nobility of its heart, it had accepted its fate without complaint. But the people were afraid that one day the creature would escape from the tomb, and the affliction would return. So they gathered their remaining warriors, and they made their warriors into guardians. The guardians swore an oath that they would guard the creature for as long as there was need, even if that need should be endless. With the creature, they entered the tomb and sealed themselves within, unaware of what they had promised. Years stretched on, and the guardians stood vigil. The affliction no longer threatened the people. And so, as people often do, they forgot. But deep where the light could no longer reach, the warriors' conviction had begun to wane. Their vow had come with a terrible cost, and the task was simply too much to bear. For who can truly comprehend the unending? Time had turned their duty into a torment, and they were consumed by desperation. They yearned for the light, the warmth of the sun, and they despised the darkness around them. When their desperation became rage, they betrayed the creature. Ooh, this is interesting so far. They clawed out of the earth and were blinded by the sun, unaware that they had unleashed a forgotten affliction. Vanya, are you done? Yes. In Edric, stories are usually relished. What else is there to do with an idle mind? And what was I to take from this miserable little tale, Zelaria? Oh, okay. Darkness cannot be sealed away. A terrible affliction contained. If every story I've ever been in, even the tiniest bit true, stuffing darkness under a rock never works. I see. You have much to do, Zelaria. Go on, get to work. Okay, so what am I doing? On my way into the village, I discovered that Edric had visitors. Edric? Is it rare to see outsiders here? But these men were an exception. They came just often enough that we were no longer surprised by them. Most of the time they kept to themselves. But even the friendliest of their number would grow evasive and choose words very carefully if you asked too many questions. Luckily, for their dislike of meddling, we disliked change. We left each other be, and suited one another fine. As it would happen, I was caught in a conversation with one of our visitors, Rylan, a crew member of the Serpentine. The most beautiful ship man dared to dream of. Not that I had anything to compare with, nor the wish to disagree. What is it? Spice, my dear. But from where? Well, I'm not sure. You're not sure where you stole it? Can't you tell me anything about it? Well, then why should I care about it? I'll go with the first one. All the plundering begins to get hazy after a while, does it? Zelaria, such a suspicious mind. Let him be vague? I see. Besides, do you really care where I got it? Well, no. Well, you have a point. I thought so. So do we have a deal? Rylan wanted to trade his mystery pouch of spice for a few of the ramps in my pack. It was an unusual opportunity. But I had no room for frivolousness. Everything we forged was accounted for, and everything lost an empty belly. And there's Rylan to consider, of course. He's an entirely chaotic element of his own. A sailor. Charming enough now, and while I've never seen him do anything suspicious, his idea of haggling is probably steal or kill. Try to haggle? This is my dilemma. Each of the ramps we gathered yesterday are particularly accounted for already. Practically. Try to imagine my situation, Rylan. We in Edric do not have many luxuries. We certainly don't have interest in fancy little pouches of spice. It's all very simple here. You're trying to haggle with me? I can only spare a little. That is what I'm trying to make clear. You can't be serious. Survival is very serious, Rylan. This is livelihood and sustenance we speak of. And how much of your pack is a little? I would be happy to trade you 2 ramps in exchange for your pouch of spice. I can't. Zelaria, have you lost your mind? You're trying to haggle with me. Me, and when I was doing you a favor? This is rare, exotic, exclusive product. But rare, exotic, and exclusive those are words that mean so little here in Edric. Ah, I see. And you insinuate that I am the thief between us? What'll it be, Rylan? Fine. Haha, I won. Despite the look he gave, I got the impression Rylan was secretly amused. Rylan turned to leave. I was happy to let him leave as quickly as he wanted. I wanted to ask for stories of the seas. I wanted to see if he had more to trade. I was happy for him to leave. I made no effort to stop him. I have a lot to do today. He was making me nervous. He was irritating me. Let's be honest. I was glad he was gone even. He thinks he can take advantage of us in Edric. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that properly. Aunt Vanya? No one answered back. Our hut was humble, though I understood this only in the way that I understood elsewhere. People kept massive fields with servants and livestock. But elsewhere was elsewhere. Here in Edric, a hut was something to be proud of. No reason to feel shame or envy. Aunt Vanya was, in fact, very proud of our hut. But looking at it, the only thing I could see was fence in need of mending. It had been threatening to give way for weeks, though nothing new. It had been in one state of despair or the next since I was a child. Try to fix it for the 232nd time. Let's go with, I don't know, ignore it. The shambled fence was immortal in its decay, immune to both destruction and restoration. I knew better. There was a soft ruffling of the leaves from somewhere behind me. What are you doing? You startled me. Vanya, you shouldn't come up behind people like that. What? Oh, get a hold of yourself, girl. How do you expect to get on without me with a gut as weak as that? Why are you home so early? I had a lucky day. Shara took all the ramps bright and early. Yeah? Well, then let's see if your luck holds. Switch packs with me and finish the foraging. What? That's not fair. Save your breath. I have business in the village tonight and my back is already sore. What business do you have in the village? Business? What do you possibly want in the village? You hate going into the village. We do things we hate when they're necessary, don't we? What are you going to do? I don't have time to chat, Zaleria. Neither do you. Not with a whole forest to forage. Fine. Maybe I wanted to go into the village. So far, the foraging was uneventful. I had my sickle, some mostly empty packs, and a few unimpressive roots that probably should have stayed in the ground for a couple more weeks. The forest was warm today. It felt nice against my skin. I had a right to complain about the added foraging, but if I was being honest, the solitude was nice enough that I was enjoying myself. But I knew the burned forest well. There was little I would find worth foraging today. Let's explore. Though I knew where the woods kept its berries and roots, and though I had explored what seemed to be every tree and every rock since I was young, I also knew that the forest could never be fully explored. The sun was falling, beaming through the trees. It was time to go home. What was that? Try to climb the tree, try to knock it down with a rock. Knock it down with a rock. And missed. Oh? Who's there? Nothing answered. I was sure I'd seen someone. I ran home. When I made it home, I found Vanya gone. For once, I missed her terribly. It's not as though our hut offered much safety, not from people. Foreigners did not come to Edric. Zaleria? Aunt Vanya? What's gotten into you? There was someone in the woods. Was there? A person, a man, I think. Dark clothes? A man in dark clothes? Perhaps it was Borthus. No, I called out and he didn't respond. No longer alone, I began to feel a bit calmer. I was actually very curious. If it was a stranger, where might he have come from and why, except for Rylan and his crew? The pirates are in Edric. Then that's probably what you saw, a pirate. But he didn't look like a sailor. Pirate, and what does a sailor look like, pray tell? Well, alright, I suppose that makes as much sense as anything. But in that case, a pirate was stalking me out in the woods and hid when I spotted him. I don't know if I just double-clicked that. My aunt handed me a warm cup. Here. It smells sweet. Well, don't get used to it. The sweetness lasted only a moment once on the tongue. The drink had an aftertaste that was quite bitter, not exactly unpleasant, but strange. I found myself lost in an effort to identify the taste. After it was all gone, I finally asked, "What did you put in it?" "Some of that spice." "Some what?" "Ryland spice. You just put it in my drink?" It smelled like it would be good for it. You seem to have agreed. Drank it all without no complaint. But I was going to... A hot drink always calmed me down, and this is the thanks I get? Unbelievable. A stalker, an aunt who puts unidentified spice in my drinks without telling me, and an indefensible hut. I went to bed in a foul mood. I fell asleep quickly. Quicker than usual. Where is it? Unfortunately, I didn't wake gently. You going mad on me, girl? Not just yet. No, I think not. I was having a very strange dream, though. What was it about? You just woke up yelling something. I don't remember. Dreams are funny that way. What did I yell? Where is it? Everything's certainly been strange lately. I think I'll ask Rylan about the man in the forest. Maybe Rylan would know more about that man I saw yesterday? Assuming it wasn't Rylan in the first place. It wasn't. They look different. You got a good look at him? No. It couldn't have been Rylan. I'll be gone then. Get your work done, Zalaria. You're leaving? Yeah. Not much choice. Starving is the worst kind of death. She left promptly, gone before I was even fully awake. I stared after her for a few moments as I realized I need to go back into the forest myself. She was right. Starving is the worst kind of death. And if you don't forge today, you don't eat tomorrow. Besides, I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little curious. The woods seemed cold and unfamiliar, all sorts of wrong. I couldn't explain why it felt this way. Birds made their noises and I hadn't seen anything unusual. I couldn't explain why it felt this way. Birds made their noises and I hadn't seen anything... I just read that twice, sorry. I was certain it wasn't very cold, but still a chill stuck to my bones. Each step forward I took, I regretted. I considered time and time again turning back, yet I continued forward. I was already trapped. Already in the throes of fate. Hello? Where is it? And then the source of my unease finally revealed itself to me. The stranger waited only a moment before repeating his question. Where is the Kuthan-Toll? I couldn't do anything more than stare. Who? Where is it? The man, was it a man, stepped forward with his hand outstretched as though making to grab for me? No, he definitely wasn't human. He didn't move like a human would. Run, attack, speak. Speak. I steeled myself and forced out some words. Be diplomatic. There's no reason we can't both leave from here peacefully. Peacefully? He said it as though we had two different ideas of what the word meant. I doubt this can end peacefully for you, human. Well, I'm willing to try if you are. The legacy of my people is not one of peace. That you're still breathing ought to spring all sorts of questions and worries in your mind. Or do you already know why I'm here? I don't know why you're here at all. Do you know what I am? What do you mean? As in not human? Had you thought your kind to be alone? Oh, okay. You're an elf? You're an elf, aren't you? That is simple enough to figure out. The real question is, what kind of elf am I? I don't know that much about elves. Then I suppose it doesn't matter. All you really need to know is that the Kuthan-Toll belongs to my people. The what? Maybe it's Kuthan-Toll. The Kuthan-Toll? Is it mine and you will give it to me? I didn't know what the Kuthan-Toll was, which it seemed he would refuse to believe, perhaps believing instead that if he had asked me enough times I'd concede. I don't know what a Kuthan-Toll is. I wasn't sure how much longer his patience would hold, but I didn't think it would last much longer. calling it by another name. A small black pouch decorated in ancient Galilean glyphs containing a precious marrow. A pouch? The spice I got from Rylan was in a pouch that looked a lot like what he described. Not that I knew what Galilean glyphs looked like, but if I had to take a guess. Should I just lie? I still don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Does that mean you didn't accept the Kuthentor from the other human in the exchange of what I believe were vegetables? You were watching? Where were you? Just how long have you been watching me? I'll make it simple, human. All I want is the I'm sorry, I'm going to be butchering this the whole time. I'm running out of time, and so are you. Oh, please. The Kuthentor really belongs to me. You have no means to challenge this, and you have no right to. So your options, lucky as you are to even have them, give me the Kuthentor or die. Fine. You can have your spice. Spice? It isn't spice. Then you can have your marrow? Waving his arm, he seemed to be directing me toward home. Was he serious? Start walking. With only brief hesitation, I began walking toward the hut. I waited outside while the elf went into the hut. I briefly entertained the idea of running, but along the way I had noticed the elf's head turned just slightly from noise to noise. Every bird that chirped, every branch that broke, he observed. I'd also noticed that as we walked, while my feet crunched and cracked whatever was underfoot, the ground beneath his feet was nearly silent. If I were to try running away, I don't think I'd get far. I'd never been in a situation like this. I'd heard about the way people are outside the village. I'd heard that they were cruel and forceful, irreverent, violent. I'd heard they'd steal and hurt on a whim. Life was not forgiving here, nor was Vanya. But this was a different feeling. I'd never experienced it, and I'd never met anyone who wasn't human before. Yet here, the first one I meet is now plundering my home for something he claims to belong to him. And how did he get here unseen? Perhaps he had stowed away with the pirates? A stowaway? A large elf among the Lalari pirates? Even I knew that the Lalari were known for being bigots. There was a pounding in my ear. The impulse to act was increasing with each beat of my heart. I realized that this might have been my last chance to change my fortune. Let's attempt to trap him in the hut. Feeling especially bold, I crept toward the hut. When Vanya and I had been having trouble with the foxes and wolves scavenging our stores, we began locking the door with a wooden slide. And I'd need to do to imprison the elf for at least a little while was close the door and insert the slide before he could stop me. As I moved closer to the hut, the plan seemed more and more insane. I picked up the slide from near the door as silently as I could, and then considered whether or not I should peek inside first to see which direction he was facing. You could barely turn around in that hut, but maybe I'd have a chance if his back was turned. Look inside first. I decided to look inside first. I saw... Without thinking, I dropped the slide. I'm sure it appeared about as convincing as a toddler dropping a cookie. The elf looked angry, not to my surprise. He was holding a small black pouch. You found it? Outside. I'm beginning to think killing you would be an act of mercy. He stared at me for a few seconds, then retrieved a black pouch from his coat. His glare hardened as though the pouch represented something. You don't seem like you're the mercy sort. The Kuthentor is empty. I watched as he turned the pouch inside out and shook it in a frustrated display. That would mean Vanya used it all. I hadn't even begun to think of the implications behind eating some of what this elf was after. A part of me had been hoping Vanya hadn't actually put the spice Kusenthal in my drink. What have you done with it? The elf's demand was intense and violent. I stared back in horror. How was I going to explain that I'd eaten? Answer! I watched as the elf dropped the pouch into a pocket into his coat, only to then notice he had simultaneously drawn a small dagger from his hip. Get away from my girl! I was surprised by my aunt, but the elf's gaze remained focused on me. The old woman. What's going on? You two have done something with the Kusenthal. Is that the name of the spice that was in the pouch? It is not a spice. It is precious, rare, sacred marrow, and it belongs to my people. Well, it's gone. The elf's temper boiled over. His pale face grew slightly red, hot with frustration. I had the sense to take a step back. But the elf grabbed me and held the dagger to my throat. Gone? Gone where? I tried to think clearly, if I was clever. She drank it. Drank it? Vanya! I told you, we thought it was a spice! I clamped my eyes shut, prepared for the worst. But nothing happened. The elf had taken a step back from me and was staring at me in a curious way. Well, that's it then. Yes, I suppose so. What? Though she hit it well, I could tell that Vanya was surprised that the elf had agreed. So much for history and its offerings. I couldn't believe the elf was so easily satisfied. He'd been so obsessed with the Kusenthal, and to find out that it was gone, that I drank it, and then to be... We're leaving. We? You're not taking the girl anywhere. Oh, I am. She drank the Kusenthal, and the Kusenthal belongs to us. She belongs to us. What asinine logic? If you didn't want the spice eaten, you should have kept it closer to home. It was not... He waved his hand. You don't have a choice in this. If you didn't want to be subject to the demands of your betters, you would have made yourself stronger. Or perhaps you would have avoided fumbling into history that doesn't belong to you. But how do you even know we told the truth? You're ready to just abandon... I think it makes as much sense as anything in this deplorable village. You didn't smuggle it anywhere. I would have seen. I searched that hut of yours through and through. You... Don't get in my way. I could tell Vanya wasn't going to back down easily. She seemed calm, but I knew her better than that. I also knew that my aunt was unlikely to achieve anything beyond getting herself hurt. Oh, jeez. It's alright, Vanya. The elf wants to drag you off to his cave. I'll be alright. We need to go. Now. Alright, elf. I'll go with you. I know. He wasted no time leading me away. Walking through the forest with the elf at my heel felt like a death march. He hadn't said a word since we'd begun walking. I didn't choose to break the silence myself either. The elf followed from a slight distance, only stepping forward to nudge me in a different direction every now and then. I could tell that we weren't headed into the village, but that we were headed toward the coast. Those are ugly scars. Where is Galia? East of here. Galia is an island. An island? Does that mean you came here by ship? You'll see, soon enough. This way. This time, instead of nudging me in a new direction, the elf had moved through the trees and called behind for me to follow. I stopped walking and stared at where the elf had disappeared to. I sent a look over my shoulder and began to consider. What was that? There was a strange noise nearby, and then, for only a moment, I saw the shape of another figure darting through the trees. Were there more? Human! The fear that whoever else was out there might be worse than the elf I already had pushed me forward. Elf? He didn't answer, but he was moving fast, and I was losing sight of him. Where are we going? To the bastion. It looks like we've made it just in time after all. What is the bastion? A ship! And you expect me to be on that ship? You will be on that ship. If I don't have a choice, because if I refuse, you'll just force me onto it. That took you a long time to come to terms with, didn't it? It's a bit much to accept all at once. If that's true, you're even more sheltered than you look. I tried to piece together what little information I had. I tried to remember any time anyone had ever referenced Galia in the past. I couldn't remember anything. When the coast appeared, I immediately spotted the ship. It wasn't the Serpentine, which I had once thought to be the largest ship in the world. Indeed, this ship was somehow much larger. On the beach, not far from us, where there were dozens of elves just as pale, sullen-faced and dark-clad as the one who found me. Huh? You and I made good time. I thought we were going to be late. The elf sounded pleased in a very bored sort of way. Stay put, you'll board shortly. Weave a basket or have some children or whatever it is you humans do. Rude. I watched the elves for a little while, but the longer I did, the more surreal it all became. I tried to imagine where we were in relation to my village. How far north we must have been so that no one would have seen the elves' massive ship. Surely someone in the village must have seen one of these elves. And what were they doing here? The elves were everywhere, an infestation that had gone completely unnoticed. I was sitting on the beach somewhere north of the village I'd lived in my whole life, but I was surrounded by strange beings, and they were threatening to take me away to their strange land. What's more, I felt utterly exhausted. My mind had been running, my heart racing. No, I was beyond mere exhaustion now. I would have thought to feel restless and jumpy, keenly aware, but that wasn't the case. A thought kept clouding my mind. The marrow I'd consumed. I didn't feel sick, only weary. But if all the elves were here for the thing I drank, what would that mean? Had I poisoned myself? As the sun set, my worries began to fade. Though it lasted for only a few moments, between the strange weariness and the rosy sky I felt comforted. Pacified. The last comfort before the slaughter. The last pulse of warmth before the freeze. Human. It's Zelaria. We're leaving. Perhaps the calm I felt scrounged up a desire for dignity, because I realized I wanted to call my captor by his name. Please don't ask me to pronounce it, because I cannot. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be abducted and tormented by a man whose name I didn't even know. What is your name? Why do you want to know? Are you hoping to be friends? I would like to know the name of the elf who brought me here. Lasaga? Lasaga, I think? Daral, first scout of the Gallian forces. I was a little surprised he told me his name, and in a bizarre way I was surprised he even had one. This all felt a bit too much like a dream. Get moving, human. Move quickly. My name is Zelaria. I'm not the one who asked for introductions. Jesus. Oh, well, fine then, Lacey. It's, excuse me? I've always liked lace. I've only seen it twice before. The shepherd's wife has a lace shirt. It's so pretty and delicate. Do you have any idea how easily I could kill you? So you keep saying. I might as well have been walking into another world. Aboard the Galian ship I got a few odd looks from the elves. They were all as pale as Lacey. All wore dark armour, and they all seemed to have dark hair. Their looks never lingered. For whatever anomaly I was, I must not have been that remarkable. They moved with purpose, diligent, efficient, unwilling to be distracted. Lacey had followed me onto the deck, staying behind me at an increasing distance. I even lost sight of him in between the crowds on occasion, but I supposed he wasn't concerned. Where was I going to go? I tried to move out of the elves' way as best as I could, but I still seemed to be making something of an obstruction. So I tried to stand still. The elves moved around me. There you are, Laceaga. Sorry. I heard the name of my escort and looked to the woman who spoke it. She was marching toward me. Commander. I hadn't realized Lacey had caught up to me until I heard his voice over my shoulder. Your little side venture successful, I take it? If not? She gave me a long, curious look. Then I'll demand a smuggling fee. There are proper channels if you really insist on taking your lovers home. She is what Dulay wants. He's always been a bit of an odd one, hasn't he? Alright, why not? Welcome to the Bastion, human. It seemed I ought to get used to be called human. I'm Commander Calipoa? Millie Rose? Calipoa? Your name is Callie now, okay? Callie Milrose. Commander, does that mean you're in charge of all this? The gigantic ship, the masses of black-clad elves, the mysterious agenda somehow involving me. Oh no, no, I'm in charge of part of this. I'm also in charge of him. She motions at Lacey, sounding ever so slightly smug. I felt a surge of optimism. Are you all like him? Are the rest of you like him? Well, in some ways, he's not at all the exception, if that's what you mean. I suggest you learn to embrace pride, arrogance, hostility, and aggression. I promise that underneath all the war and the bloodlust were all sorts of fun. Was she serious? Apparently she was serious. But a word of advice. If the Onyx Chandler wants you in his clutches, he'll find a way to have you. If you're clever, you'll figure out how to keep him from wanting you. She sighed, seeming to struggle with something. I really am busy, despite appearances. Let me think. What can I... Perfect. Vadian? Your name is Vad, okay? Vad. The commander seized the attention of the other elf, who immediately stopped what he was doing and walked towards us. He sent a look at the commander, then his gaze fell on me. Hello, Vad. Who's this? A human. Yes. Commander, I noticed, but... She's for the Onyx Chandler, and no, I don't know what he wants with her. I began to notice tension between the new elf and Lacey. They stared at each other in silence for a few long seconds. That was when I realized the ship had begun to move. It was the strangest sensation, and it threw my balance just enough that I had to crouch down to steady myself. Are you alright? Ah, and there he goes. Far too easy. Come with me. Lacey. Your name is Lacey now, okay? You have some things to explain. Maybe just Lace. Callie and Lace left immediately, leaving me with the new elf. He held out his hand, offering it to help me with my balance. Yes, I'll take your hand. I hesitated and then reached out to take his hand. He held my hand tight, helping me steady myself. All of these elves were deceptively strong, and it seemed. After I stood again and regained my balance, he let my hand go. First time on a ship? Yeah. Wasn't that obvious? Was it common to have spent time on a ship? No one I knew had ever been on a ship. Not one like this. You seem nicer than Lace. Oh, I should definitely hope so. Wait, what did you just call him? Lacey. You call him Lacey? That's bizarre. Is it? It's not as though he was happy with it. I've no doubt. You're not hurt, are you? No, I'm fine. I tried not to panic at how relieved he looked. If you don't mind, how did you end up... ask him what he wants to know. Why are you so interested? I suppose I'm just concerned. I've got a history of sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, so if you want me to leave, you need only say it. More than anything, Lace being involved is enough for me to worry. Lace isn't someone I'd wish on my worst enemy. He thinks that if someone is defenseless, they're simply at mercy of people who are stronger, so he pushes people who can't stop him. Then I should learn to defend myself. Then my first order of business is to learn the most effective and diverse ways to kill elves. I'm slightly uncomfortable. Good. At least you were warned. Oh, I haven't even... My name is Vade. Millerose. What's your name? Zalaria. I hadn't heard Millerose before. Well, truth be told, retaining names was currently a low priority. Yeah, and me also butchering them. But I think that was the commander's surname as well. Were they related? Well met, Zalaria. I'll show you to a hammock if you like. It's very crowded, but at least you'll only be among women. Are the women here soldiers? Your people let their women fight? Yes, my people have never distinguished between men and women that way. Do yours? Sort of. They aren't really soldiers in Edric, but there are roles. Did they restrict you from being what you wanted? No, Edric has lazy tradition, and well, I lived in the woods, made my own rules. That sounds blissful. He showed me to the ship's hold and gave me simple directions to finding a row of hammocks. The ship's innards weren't anything like I'd imagined. It was so dark and almost impossible to see anything. You can find it now, can't you? I really shouldn't go any further, privacy and all. If you need anything, I have to get back to duty, but truly... Tell me more about yourself. Well, tell me more about yourself then. Me? Well, I'm a scout in the forces, 1st Division. Is that like what Lace is? Yes, exactly what Lace is. Do you know the commander? The commander? Oh yes, she and I are cousins. We were born within weeks of each other. We're close. You'll find a lot of family speckled across the chain of command. Does that mean you're important? Oh no, not at all. Okay. Can you tell me more about Galia? Your people? I have no idea where I'm going. He gave a heavy sigh. I can tell you that Galia is a dark place and that we don't welcome outsiders. I'm afraid things will be very difficult for you. That's not... Can you tell me something a bit more specific? Galia is a small island. We live in one primary city with a very dense population, completely encircled in a fortress wall. We are known for our forces, an army that enlists more than 2/3 of our population. We are essentially mercenaries, though be mindful who you repeat that to. Most Galians don't appreciate the term. Noted. I wish I could think of how to prepare you. Lace? You knew Lace was involved with my arrival? I saw the two of you arrive, yes. Okay. notice me come aboard then? Now that is because you pay close attention to everything Lace does, or is it because... well, you don't look like you're a part of the forces, so He looked a little caught off guard. I don't need anything. I understand. Take care. Left alone for the first time since this morning, I stared down the narrow pathway before me. Well, what I could see of it. It seemed far less busy down here, but occasionally I'd feel the movements of others around me. I eventually found the chamber Vade had told me about. I was starting to see better. Perhaps my eyes had been adjusting after all. It didn't help that the Galleons seemed intent on keeping everything in shades of black. Though it was very early in the evening, all the hammocks I could see were filled. The sleeping elves were, as far as I could tell, all female. I scanned the hammocks for a while, searching for an empty one. It was difficult to tell from where I stood, but I thought I spotted one in the third row. There was also an awake elf who'd been staring at me since I entered. Ask now? Pardon me? The elf's brows flew up. She continued to stare, but she didn't say a word. I realized, belatedly, that this elf looked different from the others. Were it not for the ears, I'd have thought her human. Try checking on the third row. I decided to move toward the third row and get a better look at the hammock I thought to be empty. Weaving in between hammocks felt like tiptoeing around sleeping beasts, and to my great dismay, when I came to the third row, I discovered that the hammock I thought to be empty was not. I began carefully making my way further, but then I heard someone snickering. I turned toward the noise, somewhat against my better judgment. I couldn't figure out where the snickering had come from at first, but then I saw a movement off to my left. Shh. The elf caught my gaze and hushed me, confirming any suspicions I had. He was indeed not meant to be here. Whatever, not my business. Oh, okay, no, I will make it my business. I nodded in response. I had no interest in making yet another elf enemy. The elf smiled at me and then snuck away. After watching him leave, I spotted an empty hammock a few steps behind where the sneaking elf had been. I was left alone for the rest of the night. Those around me seemed to sleep soundly, as though theirs was a hard-earned slumber. I didn't seem to concern them. Come morning, I had gotten little sleep. I had spent the night lying still in my hammock, marvelling at all the things I didn't know. I couldn't stop wondering about the Kuthentol and what it might do to me. The hopeful part of me had rendered the Kuthentol physically innocuous, if only because it had been a day and a half and I was still fine. But the other parts of me, the parts of me that also recognized my situation aboard a massive ship destined for a place I'd never been, filled with people I'd never seen, would remember that there must be a reason for all of this. There simply had to be a reason Lace dragged me aboard, a reason he was sent to find the Kuthentol in the first place. If nothing else, I was tangled tight in a web I could barely understand. Around the time the elves who had been sleeping when I first arrived were waking up, laying still with only my wanderings had become too much to bear. I quietly snuck out of my hammock and made my way back into the hall. The hall was busier than it had been the evening prior. The majority of the elves were moving in one specific direction, deeper into the ship's hold. The jumbled sounds of the elves speaking to each other hit me with a realization. Their language was not my own. It shouldn't have come as a surprise, but it did. Perhaps it was the elves I'd spoken to so far all knew my language, but now that I was giving it some thought, that was very strange. Let's follow them. I decided to follow the elves and see where they were all headed. The elves themselves didn't seem to notice my presence. I blended in seamlessly, so long as I kept moving. We'd only walked a little deeper into the ship before a scent began to fill the air. Food. Even elves have to eat, it would seem. The smell was coming from a dark room lined with narrow tables. It was crammed full of noisy, hungry soldiers. Though it was difficult to pick out faces in a cramped hive, of identically dressed elves, I spotted Commander Callie in the crowd. I began to approach her cautiously, eavesdropping on the conversation she was having with a small crowd of other elves. Not that I could actually understand what they were saying. "Oh, it's the human. Did you get any sleep?" I didn't manage to escape her notice long. A little. A little lie, anyway. "Commander, this human." "Ah, but the other Chandler would have to answer that." The Onyx?" "That's the one. She's that special request of his." The tone in the curious elf's voice suddenly went sour. He and the rest of the little crowd that had formed around Callie began to disperse. Though not before sending me glances as though I carried the plague. What was that? Why are they leaving?" "It has more to do with the Onyx Chandler's influence. Don't take it personally." I scoffed. "If you're here to eat, help yourself. No one is going to stop you." I nodded, and so it seemed I wouldn't starve. Well, maybe not. I wasn't picky, but I had yet to see exactly what elves ate. Hopefully not. Well, it's not cannibalism if they're elves, is it? Chin up, make yourself at home. You might find we grow on you. I think Vade. I think Vade's around here somewhere. The commander took her leave after that. Not wanting to make a spectacle of myself, I followed the flow of the elves around the room. Stay a little while longer? I had to circle a second time before I spotted him. "Vade?" He was sitting at one of the packed tables. The look on his face told me he was very surprised to see me. I watched him hesitate, then stand and make his way toward me. Then I watched an elf swoop like a vulture into his spot. "Are you alright?" You shouldn't have given up your seat. You're not going to get that spot back anytime soon." He looked back at the spot he'd been sitting in and snorted. "Lucky I was about done. I should have offered you." That's alright. "Did you come down here to eat? Did you get any rest? Have people been treating you alright?" No, and well, nothing that's come to blows at least. Callie said people had been talking about me, and throwing the Onyx Chandler around clears a path awful fast. You spoke to Callie? A few moments ago. Ah, well, yes, I've heard some things. Do tell. Such as? He hesitated uncomfortably. Well, people are speculating why the Onyx Chandler might want a young woman brought to him, and depending on who's doing the talking, you're a kidnapped human queen, a secret half-elf daughter. Excuse me? A pregnant lover, someone who owes him a lot of coin, or the daughter or lover of someone who owes him a lot of coin. Kuthenthal has been whispered here and there. So, gossip essentially. More or less, but on the bright side, it means everyone intends to stay clear of you. Because of the Onyx Chandler? Yes. Do you want to go up on deck? Get away from the crowd? It might be easier to breathe. I looked around the crowded mess. It seemed to be even fuller than it had been when I first arrived. Alright. And so I followed Vade through the ship's hallways, and the two of us went up to the ship's deck. Yes, much better. The sky was bright compared to the ship mess. Not much less crowded, but I found a bit amazing. At least we're not packed in by a ceiling. He waved a hand toward the sun. Oh, you make a return? You are a very strange woman. It took me a second to recognize him, but it was definitely the elf from the hammocks. I could only hazard a guess at what he wanted with me. His expression was considerably less angry and stoic than most of the other elves. He seemed curious. That's curious. What is? The man I find sneaking through the women's quarters is now calling me strange. You what? Oh, that's not so strange. Nothing compared to what you've done. They'd stop looking so scandalized. What do you mean? Let me ask you something. Have you noticed anything odd? Sensory changes, noises, feelings? Fish for information. Maybe. Can you be more specific? Do I need to be? Most people don't consider odd noises, sensory changes, or very unusual sensations to be all that mundane. I'm not currently living my regular life. This I'll submit. How about colours you never noticed in quite the same shade before, or noises you can't place? The eerie weight of an unseen, unnatural presence. Perhaps the feeling of shedding your skin? What? Harren? I suppose no? Harren? Oh god, there's more. Why do they all have to be good looking? What the hell? Ernal. You're not supposed to be here, Harren. Yet another elf approached. It prompted a sigh from the first. So I'm getting flustered now. Harren and Ernal, brothers, my cousins. How much of your family is aboard this ship? This is what you call inconspicuous? You couldn't at least try to blend in? Callie gave me permission. Not to make an ass of yourself. Then the new elf seemed to finally realise I existed. And seemed confused. What? What? Who are you? Why? Are you? If you thought I was charming, Madrilee, then just wait until you get to know Ernal. My brother has the grace of an elephant. Why is this human aboard the Bastion, Harren? Evidently, the Onyx Chandler sent Lace after her. I'll have you know, I'm not thrilled about it either. Why? I'm sure he has a reason. Not that he needs one. You already have the one human trophy. She's not human. She's half. That doesn't matter. What does Dulier want with this human? I focused my attention on the first elf, Harren, who seemed to know something he wasn't telling. Unfortunately, his attention was focused on me in return. Both of us stayed silent, willing the other to speak first. For the love of the heart, this is not the time or the place. If neither of you care to explain, both of you need to get off deck, especially you, Harren. She's not getting in the way of anything. She will. Zalera, you don't have to tell them anything. No, I'll own it. I drank the Kuthental. I inhaled a deep breath. I drank a spice Lace referred to as a marrow. The Kuthental, I knew it! His palpable excitement did little to comfort me. So, what's going to happen to me? After consuming Kuthental, I'm surprised you're still alive. Ernal! What? So, it is poison? It is poison after all. Somehow in my gut I knew it to be true. No, calm down. The fact remains you are alive. What does that mean? That's the truly fascinating question. It lost whatever potency it had over the years. It never worked quite the way Dulier thought it did. Both possible, yes. But you hope for something else, of course. Of course, the potential is... Excuse me, the explanation? I'm trying to explain. The explanation is that this is so unreal and unknown that no one knows what will happen. Not actually information, is it? I can't even tell you with complete certainty what the Kuthentol is. It's all muddled up in the fragmented history, lost, retold, obscured, guessed at. So much so that the likelihood what you ate was actually Kuthentol, that Kuthentol actually exists, is slim. But if it was real and anything like that, what our historians thought it would be, you shouldn't be alive. So as it is, something is off. Something is wrong. Or someone is lying. I would be thrilled were that the case. It was Lace who declared my spice to be your Kuthentol in the first place. Then all the more likely that someone is lying. I don't know, Ernol. His machinations are rarely hollow. Machinations. He's afforded one misguided and gullible leap into nonsense every now and then. Quite the leap, Kuthentol. What about vibrations? Do you feel like you're underwater? Harren's attention snapped back to me. No! If it was Kuthentol just because she's not dead yet, can you be more mindful of who you say these things around? She has this right to hear this more than anyone, don't you think? Tell me what you know about the Kuthentol. What at least you think you know. Even if what I drank was not actually the Kuthentol, I want to know all I can. Right, of course. Of course. The Kuthentol is an ancient marrow referenced throughout the oldest of our preserved history. The information is fragmented, so ultimately all we can do is guess at how it was used. It seems some of our most prestigious warriors were connected to the Kuthentol. Our leaders. Some believe they laced their weapons with it. Others believe they mended their wounds with it. Some believe they consumed it. As you have. I could have really done without him looking so excited at that fact. And it was an argument. Oh, an augment, sorry. Can't read. No, that's not the right word. A right? But what did it do? It enhanced them somehow. It made them stronger or something else. The references are always vague, not pure strength, and something big but not obscure. The Rang theory is enhance them at a cost. This is why my brother seems to reject the idea that you've consumed the Kuthentol and are still alive. If he wanted the Kuthentol and this is what he got, Dulier wouldn't be pleased. Well, if he doesn't want her... Oh, he will. I just don't think he'll be pleased. Rude. Harren, I told you to keep out of sight, you maggot. Ernol groaned. Vade, meanwhile, seemed almost relieved. This is on your head, Harren. Nevertheless, Harren seemed unfazed. Try to keep note of anything odd you might feel. Bear it great attention. It could end up extremely important. Allow yourself plenty of rest. Every nuance, even the barest of threads tied to the Kuthentol, it's all invaluable. In affluence as well as influence. And that is why the Onyx Chandler wants me. One of the reasons. Dulier calls himself the Onyx Chandler because he is one of our foremost entrepreneurs, and a Galian entrepreneur is by nature. Well, don't mind that. If you would rather a different, slightly more eccentric patron. I will sting you to the mast, and there you will stay if you do not. He's going. I have to go. Keep precious care of yourself. Ernol watched Harren and Callie move away. Though Harren had seemed irrelevant at first, he was now moving off as quick as he could, appearing thoroughly cowed. I should get to my station as well, now that I've been spotted. Try to think before you speak, Ernol. And then all that was left to Ernol. Yes, let's talk to him. He wasn't paying attention to me, still watching the space where Harren had disappeared. It seemed he was considerably less interested in me than his brother had been. That was a bit of a relief. Your name is Ernal? Surprised, he looked back at me. Yes. Silence hung over us for a second. You are? Zalaria. Ah. Is your brother going to be okay? He's in trouble, isn't he? Yes, he's not supposed to be aboard. Callie is notoriously quick to bend rules as far as Galleon commanders go, but the fools who take advantage, too much advantage, are bloodied and broken. Is that what's going to happen to Harren? No, not the way he probably deserves, but she is our cousin and family counts for something, even here. Cousins? Huh. They'd mentioned that. Yes, Ernal, Millirose, Callie, Vade, all tied by our grandfather. I'm glad he'll be okay. Well, for what it's worth, I'm glad he'll be okay. Are you? Yes, I don't have to be fond of him to be glad he'll not be made bloody and broken. I suppose. What do you do? What is it you do aboard the ship? Why? Why not? I haven't had the chance to talk to many of you, and at least speak the same language I do. I'm a soldier. We all are. I'm currently tasked assisting the ship's quartermaster. It's not exciting. What were you doing near Edric? I can't tell you that. Then he sighed. Alright. Can you tell me more? What do you know of the Kuthantal? My brother knows more about it than I do. It's a fascination of his. But if you're asking for my personal opinion, it's far less optimistic than Harren's. I don't think the Kuthantal was a secret treasure or a secret power. I think it was a punishment. So that's why you think it'll kill me? I think if that was Kuthantal and you did consume it, you would be lucky if all it did was kill you. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry. Perhaps I could do with some tact? Can you tell me more about the Onyx Channel? It seems like you know the Onyx Channel Dulier. I do. We've known each other for years. If you're hoping to gain insight into what he wants with you, you'll be disappointed. Ah, he keeps his motivations to himself? Not always, but my loyalty is certainly not with you. Okay, thank you. So he's your friend? So I suppose you and Dooley are close? Close is an odd word. Then whatever you want to call it, it's comforting. Makes him seem less like an imposing shadow, more like a person. Him being a person shouldn't be any comfort, but I will say that you probably have less to fear from him than Lace, no doubt made it seem. Don't take my word for it though. Dillier's not always predictable. I don't want to be a begrudged thought as you find yourself strapped to a table with your stomach split open. Okay, thank you for that. I'll leave you alone then. He nodded and wasted no time going on his way. The strangeness began that night. I'd settled in my hammock and began to drift off to sleep when cold hands seized hold of my lungs. They squeezed sudden and tight. My eyes flew open, but all I saw was the dark. All the light was gone. I wanted to cry out, but it didn't seem that I was able to. I'd lost my voice. No, I lost my throat. Panic was there, bubbling under my ribs, but on the surface I was calm. My eyes were open, searching the blackness, eagerly waiting for the page to turn. But after that, I don't remember. I fell asleep, I think. And then we were arriving. We're home, but not my home. We had arrived in Gallia. Around me, the elves spoke excitedly. They were happy their journey was at an end. A long time must have passed, but I had no memory of it. My body was heavy, and I wondered if I'd ever actually left the hammock. I felt concerned, but the worry was still dull in the back of my mind. Questions formed slowly. How did I know it was morning? How did I know we arrived at our destination? Had I been asleep, or had I just forgotten? I gingerly stretched my legs and arms and slowly opened my eyes to warm glow of lanterns. The weight I felt began to drain away. Despite my long and curious rest, I seemed to be waking quickly. I noticed some of the elves in the hammocks near me grow quiet. They began to stare. I was attracting more attention now than I had when I first arrived. Smile? I smiled. They mostly recoiled, averting their gazes. The ones that continued to stare knit their brows in all things between disgust and concern. You must have been doing something in your sleep. I began walking towards the stairs leading onto the deck, moving carefully and slow. I felt awake and light, and despite all the strangeness and the buried concern, I felt happy to be awake. But on the first step, my body filled with weight again. My legs were especially heavy, bearing down where I stood like heavy rocks. But worse, the world began to sway, a slow, sticky pendulum. Elves forming a line behind me urged me forward, caught in the busy fray of soldiers eager to disembark. Try and keep going. I tried to move my legs, but the weight in them made it impossible. No matter how I strained, my legs refused to budge. Some of the elves behind me began to grumble in their impatience. Their complaints were escalating rapidly. Call out for help. I can't move. My cry caused some of the grumbling elves to immediately quiet. A surprising number of them seemed to understand what I had said. Not just because they understood my language, but because they understood my situation. I heard one of them mention Lacey's name. The notion I might protest passed over me briefly. I could pick a number of other elves, no doubt more desirable for a rescue. But no name reached my tongue. Even my thoughts were heavy and slow. Some of the elves made their way around me, aggravated, aggressive. They continued on one by one, weaving around me. Then I heard Lace's voice from above, and watched out for the corners of my eyes as he climbed over others to meet me on the stairs. He took hold of me and began to pull me up, but he seemed unable. What are you doing? His voice betrayed both frustration and bewilderment. Let go. I'm not holding on. Then why can't... He pulled me again, and this time I budged. Kept upright by the same force that pulled me. Once we were both aboard the deck, Lacey's bewilderment expression turned back to me. What did you do? What did you really do? I don't know. What was holding you in place? Why couldn't you be moved? Why were you standing there? I was trying to come aboard deck, my legs stopped working. I felt heavy. I couldn't move. You couldn't move me either? I did move you. He was angry, but for the first time in the brief time I've known him, he seemed uneasy. Out of control. Come on, Dulier's waiting. I'll be rid of you soon enough. I'm not sure that I can walk on my own. Then I'll move you. There was a determination in his voice this time, as though moving me now would make for his inability to move me earlier. Lace. Vade approached the two of us from nearby, his icy stare fixed on Lacey. Lacey exhaled a deeply annoyed sigh. Vade, not right now. Belay your instinct to coddle the weak and helpless until I get her ashore. If dealing with her causes you such frustration, Lace, I would gladly escort her to Dulier myself. You would do that for me? Hand her over and collect my gain? Julian men. She doesn't need your help. She is a Galen superpower in newly becoming after all. I felt the commander's strong grip as she pulled me against an armored body. The Onyx Chandler is waiting at the dock, Commander. Thank you. Shut up, Lacey. Despite it all, hearing the commander call him Lacey put a grin on my face. I could feel him scowling. As we departed the bastion, I found myself hoping my mysterious symptoms would clear. Perhaps the sway of the ocean was exhilarating me somehow. Perhaps I was seasick. Seasick, that's all. Listen, human. I don't know what Dulier has prepared for you, but it's true he's more powerful than he should be. But he doesn't have proper authority, and he's not the only one interested in you or the Kuthental. It's not impossible to stand against him. Do you understand? Good. And the woman ate the Kuthental in tea. Good luck, Dulier. Oh god. Thank you, Lace. Your well wishes mean a great deal. I heard a small clink as Lacey was passed a small bag from a man with blindingly blonde hair. When had blonde ever blinded me before? What exactly was his hair made of? Dulier. Ernal. What are you thinking? What are you going to do with her? You know that you can't... Shh, Ernal. Wait a second. We haven't introduced ourselves. But... Welcome to Galia, Miss Zelaria. It is truly a pleasure. I am Dulier Lasfirst, or the Onyx Chandler, as you may have heard. Callie helped me steady myself. She lingered a moment until she was satisfied I could hold myself up on my own. Then she gave me an encouraging smile and busily went on her way. You are the Onyx Chandler? Yes, again, it's a pleasure. You and I have much to discuss. Your hair? Oh yes, it will make it easy for you here. I am easy to find in a crowd. It's like looking into the sun. What's wrong with me? Or is it something wrong with him? The trip took a toll on you, Zelaria? Let's get you indoors. A little help, Ernal. My brother would much prefer to assist you with this, Dulier. No, wait, I'm not going anywhere with you. Oh, well, I have no interest in forcing you, but I do believe I'm the only one that can really help you with your unfortunate predicament. You recall you ate my prize? I didn't do that on purpose. I expect not. He chuckles in dry humour while Ernal sighs. If you did, you would not be here. Not like this, would you? How would I be? Best not to dwell on that. With the ordeal you've been through, I am not lacking compassion. Plucked out of some small isolated village, the world spun out from beneath you. How did he know the world was spinning? The world is spinning. Manhandled and corralled by the likes of Lace, and in this colourless isle of mine, you probably can't tell up from down. I've eaten an ancient killing poison that's weighing my body down, making the world spin, and your hair set aflame, so blinding I can barely look at it. Is that so? That sounds terrible. And what a poor first impression. Then let me remind you, dear human, I can help you. For what? What would be the price? Why would you want to? In complete honesty, Miss Zelaria, I paid a great deal to track down the Kuthental you ignorantly consumed. All that is left to do is study its effects on you. And that is why you had Lace drag me here, whether I liked it or not? What gives you the right to do that? You kidnapped me. You could say that, but you could also say that I saved you. If the Kuthental has something unfavourable in store for you, here is the only place to be if you wish to survive it. Further, I am far from the only person who is interested in the Kuthental. Others may be less gentle. You're in quite a lot of danger, I'm afraid. I won't pretend to be altruistic, of course. I seek selfish gains, but consider that this transparency is much more than you'll get from anyone else who would, and they will, seek to use you. Where else could I go? I'd met quite a few elves aboard the ship. There had been Vade, eager to help. Harren, he seemed to suggest I had another option with him. Where were they? Where was I? Why did the colours all become so blinding? And why was the world spinning? Why was I heavy? Why couldn't I remember? Zelaria? Ernal sighed. There she goes. Let's just add this to the long list of favours you owe me, Dulier. Let's take her inside. But right when... Do you think so? You're so... I could hear muffled voices. They weren't that far, but they were speaking through perhaps a door. I lay somewhere soft, my body snugly sunk into cushions. I kept my eyes shut. Certainly not. Judgmental. Well, he's in love. That is... The weight from before was gone, but I was nervous. If I tried to move, and I couldn't. Or what if I could move, only for the weight to come back again? I wasn't even entirely sure I was alive. The ship was lost long before. The voices seemed to be moving, closer I think. As I lay still, a great wave of sleepiness took hold of me. I was losing my grip on consciousness again. Of course I was. Fight it. I willed my strength and determination and struggled against sleep. The overwhelming drowsiness grew more desperate, but still I struggled to maintain awareness. He is an ambitious man. It's not going to end there. Why? And all the time he's had control, why would he... The voices were getting closer. Did Zaleria move? Had I? Stay still. I stayed perfectly still for as long as I could, but I could feel the heat of their gaze upon me. My skin began to tickle, my muscles grew warm, threatening to flare. I felt a surge of panic come with the knowledge I'd soon be given away, unable to keep still, unable to hide in my body. Delaria, you're awake. How long was she... That doesn't matter. She's awake now. Can you sit up? Try not to fall back asleep. The sooner we assess your situation, the sooner we can... They were talking quickly. Overwhelming, intimidating, hovering. Easy. Zaleria, take a deep breath and calm down. No, I couldn't be calm. Something was wrong. I couldn't... And again, what is this? The fourth time? How much longer can she last like this? She stayed awake longer that time. I'll call for Irelai. I sat up and found myself in a dark room. My heart was pounding. I felt cold and very hungry. I seemed to be in a bedroom. There was a window nearby. Outside I could see the night sky. I was wearing something silky and soft. I climbed out of the bed and laid my bare feet on the cold floor. Alright. I think I'm going to leave that here, guys. So I will continue this in a part 2. It's getting interesting so far. And I'm enjoying it. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. If you like the video, please leave a like. And if you would like to subscribe, please do so. And I'll see you guys in another video. Thank you. Bye.